On Saturday, 9th of June 1990, more than 40 boats and their crews converged on North Keswick in Inverness to take part in the first ever Highlands and Islands rib race. What, you may ask, is a rib? To give it its name in full, it is a rigid inflatable boat. It can range in size from about 4 to 7 metres, and it can range in speed from 20 to well over 50 knots. Rib Race 1990, the brainchild of organisers Richard Freer and Mike Alexander, was the first time anybody had ever had the idea of making these boats compete against one another. The twin purposes of the race were to promote the Highlands and Islands for tourism and to raise money for the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, the RNLI. Competitors came from far and wide. Kemal Ulusoy made the journey from Trebizond, near the Black Sea in Turkey. There were teams from Scotland and from the Channel Islands and from the south of England. There was even a team from the Isle of Egg. Their journey was to take them right round the northernmost tip of Scotland, through some of the most potentially dangerous waters of the UK. Ardnamurchan Point, Cape Wrath, the Pentland Firth. These were not names for the faint-hearted. Once the ribs had been checked for safety, and the scrutineer had established that they were all seaworthy and that the competitors had the right kind of helmets, the flotilla headed towards Loch Ness for the time trials, an essential part of any Grand Prix. Who would be the fastest? How was the handicap system going to work? These were amongst the questions that were being asked. That ribs need to be handled with care was made immediately apparent when Mike Southward, captain of the Carson 7.5 metre, one of the fastest boats assembled at a cost of over £40,000 for the race, had an early mishap as he headed towards the far end of Loch Ness.
That is a poorly leg, Billy. That is a very poorly leg. We'll put this cold compress on, right? Break it out.
From there.
Oh, bloody hell, that's agony.
That's the idea, mate. That's the idea.
We're heading for the finishing line, which we weren't 100% sure of, and one of the guys in the crew said, "That's not it, it's over there." I hung her right on the boat, and she went round so quickly that I came out the boat, and so did Billy.
The race proper started at Corpach, under the shadow of Ben Nevis on Monday morning. Already a feeling of camaraderie was being fostered. The ribs sped off, heading towards Oban. The organisers, Michael Alexander and Richard Freer, followed behind the main body in the rescue boat. It was the middle of the World Cup, and Scotland were reaching new depths of ignominy, losing to the Central American minnows Costa Rica as the ribs assembled in Oban for the night. The next day, The Royal Navy, whose assistance throughout the event was to prove invaluable, organised the start. The orders were for the Ribs to proceed to Armadale on the Isle of Skye via Tobermory. This meant rounding the notorious Ardnamurchan Point. Fortunately, the winds were hardly blowing at all, and the sea was as calm as it could ever have been. The Coast Guard had no need to worry. Even the tiny Ribs would make it round. But there was a traditional Highland ceilidh to cheer everyone up. There was music and dancing. The Clan Donald Centre's hospitality was much appreciated. Jim Davidson, the comedian, skippering a flat craft force 6.6 metres, took time off to tell a few old jokes.
But I think we ought to pull together a little bit more and a little less of the selfishness of all trying to win. I've got a very fast blow, but I am, but I think we should. What did you bring in? It's very expensive and I was worried about the exposure of the weather. Silly me, I could have parked it in your mouth. I'm Scottish. My father was, he died last year. He had the last laugh and he used to drink a bottle of whiskey a day and then got himself cremated. We all stood back when they lit the fire. My great-grandfather, Hamish Davidson, he died of asbestos poisoning. 18 hours to cremate that.
The following day, on the Armadale Lochinver, the crews made beach landings at Gairlough Basin. Men in wetsuits came bounding out of the sea, like Ursula Andress in Dr. No, all for the sake of a meat pie. Cape Wrath, potentially the roughest coastal water in Britain, where many sailors had lost their lives, and the Navy were taking no chances.
It's in our intention literally just to follow up and sweep the course through. We've got dual watching communications. We're listening on 16 and 10. We've had today, we've been in contact with the Coast Guard considerably. So if there are any problems, we can always go via Coast Guard to get to me if necessary. But in essence, we'll be at Cape Wrath at 9:30, waiting for the last boat to come through, and then we'll just sweep up the remainder of the course.
Yet again, they needn't have worried. The sea was almost flat calm. Still, some of the boats had mishaps, and there was a need for speedy repairs in Scrabster. The final day beckoned. The last part of the journey was to take the Ribs from Scrabster all the way back to Inverness, via John O'Groats and Duncansby Head. 500 miles in 6 days, and North Keswick was in sight once again. What had it meant to the competitors, arriving weary but unvanquished?
Well, it's been interesting to see so many auks and puffins, and I'm rather relieved because, you know, one felt they were declining, and there aren't so many down further south, but over the north coast there are huge numbers. It was a great experience. I've done the 2 round Britons and London Monte Carlo, and that was actually infinitely more inspiring and enjoyable, really, as you wind your way through this sublime landscape on the northwest.
Halfway around Pentland Firth, our compass went, my chart blew overboard, our radio went, my fuel gauge went, everything went wrong. But we're here, it's okay, it's not a problem. Cheers.
Leslie, that's what we've been through. Leslie.
The best thing of all was, as we were about 20 miles off this place, North Keswick, a helicopter from RAF Lossiemouth turned up on behalf, because we're supporting the Benevolent Front. A helicopter turned up and escorted us the whole way. I can't tell you what a sight it was. It was absolutely amazing.
I think I've aged about 10 years in 5 days, and I'm very glad that they were successful. Good.